And we continue at 2:05 in the afternoon on the John Phillips Show. Mr. Randy Wings in New Mexico.
John, based on the mailbag, I got to imagine there's a lot of people that would like to hear that call from last hour again. If you want to, you can go to the John Phillips Show wherever you get your podcasts, where I just posted the last hour.
I'm getting some notes. Who's Danielle Steele? I respond by saying, you must not be like Katie Porter and you never go to the grocery store. Because if you did, you'd see all of her books on display. 800-222-5222 is the telephone number, 1-800-222-5222. It is our pleasure to welcome our next guest to the program. He is the senior editor at Reason and the host of Rising on The Hill TV. You can read him online at reason.com and follow him on X at Robby Soave. Robby Soave, welcome.
Good to be with you.
Robby, we have some breaking news coming in where former National Security Advisor John Bolton has been indicted by a grand jury. This according to reporting from CNN. They say it's about John Bolton's use of an email account with AOL, an email account where he was writing diary-like notes, at times even sending them to his wife and his daughter, end quote. This, of course, is not good news for Mr. Bolton.
No, it is not. This is, I think, not surprising. We're still processing it. But look, the Trump administration has been very clear. The MAGA base sincerely believes that, and has some evidence to this, depending on which exact prosecution you're talking about, that Trump was vigorously pursued in a political and a partisan manner by Democrats, by prosecutors, whether we're talking about the election stuff, whether we're talking about what Letitia James did, and so on and so forth. And now it's their turn, baby. They are going to say, well, if we're going to look at every transgression, no matter how small, then we'll do the same thing to you. John Bolton obviously has been an outspoken opponent of Trump, despite working in the administration at one point, and, is someone whose ideology of just intervention everywhere and let's start World War III is totally out of fashion in the Republican Party, to the extent where he is far more comfortable being on panels on CNN or wherever else, despite, holding views that a decade or two ago they would have considered monstrous. But now, because he doesn't like Trump, he's welcome to share the table with them. He's going to the grand jury. Now, grand jury indicting you doesn't mean necessarily all that much. If they'd not indicted him, that would have meant the case was extremely weak. The government gets to decide what evidence is submitted, basically what the grand jury sees. So grand jury indictments are extremely likely, and he deserves every presumption of innocence, of course. If this is just partisan, if this is not substantial, then even though I don't like or agree with his views, I would want him to be acquitted of it, but we got to remain to see what the evidence actually is.
I don't remember where I saw it, but I want to say that at some point in the past, I read somewhere that this investigation into John Bolton started before Donald Trump was elected president the second time around, that I guess they were looking into this in the Biden administration. Had you heard that too?
I can't remember if I've heard that specifically. It wouldn't surprise me. The improper storage of classified documents, by the way, is something that has now ensnared many political figures on both the Democratic and Republican circles. Only Donald Trump, only Donald Trump was a SWAT team deployed to recover them. But Trump is a special situation. I do think, Again, desire to make sure John Bolton is held accountable for exactly what he would have wanted anyone else to be held accountable for, to make sure it's fair to both sides. It clashes a little bit with my suspicion that government documents and government information is overly classified all the time, because the government doesn't want to accidentally reveal anything that it's doing to the American people. And we actually have a bad system where, they're just classifying everything, even though it's not sensitive and it doesn't need to be not shared with the American people. Now, again, it's somebody does exactly what John Bolton did, they're going to get the book thrown at them. So why shouldn't he as well? Is I think the appropriate rebuttal.
We have elections going on right now in New York City for mayor, where the Democrats nominated a socialist candidate, Mamdani, who, according to every poll I've seen, is the front runner and will likely win that election. He's going on Fox News. I just saw that he did a hit over at the Fox News channel recently, which is something you don't do if you think that you might slip up and say something that'll cause you to lose the election. But if you think the election is over and you're already taking your victory lap, I guess going over to Fox is the thing to do. There are two other elections going on that are currently in dispute, or I guess I should say both sides think that they have a shot at winning. One is for the governorship in New Jersey. The other is for the governorship of Virginia. The Democratic candidates in each of those states, and granted those are both states that voted for Kamala Harris over Donald Trump in the last election, are ahead in the polls, but they're probably too close for comfort, according to recent polls, where the Republicans, if they get a little wind at their back as we get closer to Election Day, could theoretically win those races. Do you think we're going to see any upsets in any of these elections?
Well, I think Mamdani is definitely winning New York City. He's way ahead. I think Chris Cuomo is a completely uninspiring candidate, and that one's pretty much wrapped up. The Virginia race is interesting. Basically, what's happened is this Jay Jones scandal has given, to use your phrasing, has put some wind into the sails of Winsome Earl-Sears, the GOP candidate. Now, she's up against Abigail Spanberger, who's a formidable Democrat to the extent that she has the perception of being somewhat moderate for Democrats. This is a state, obviously, that Kamala Harris won. Glenn Youngkin, the incumbent Republican governor, was very popular, ran very effectively. Winsome Earl-Sears, I personally like and find impressive as someone who agrees with a lot of what she stands for, but she has not been as well received. There's been some mistakes made by the campaign. But Jay Jones, the Democratic Attorney General candidate, has been shown to be a psychotic individual who sent these text messages suggesting that he would be gleeful if his political opponents or their children died. It's just really reprehensible stuff. And I don't know that Spanberger, she didn't call on him to drop out. She kind of condemned him, and that is sadly creating an opening, because it's just a really ghastly thing for anyone to have said or expressed. And he's a disturbed individual, but it has helped Earl-Sears. So could be an upset. Would I bet on it? Probably not, but it's definitely going to be a lot closer than it was a month ago.
How is it that candidate doesn't have an answer for what the Democratic candidate for Attorney General texted? And she also didn't have an answer, Abigail Spanberger, the Democratic nominee for governor in Virginia we're talking about here. She also didn't have a coherent answer on transgendered athletes in sports. And when she was asked about it at their debate, she kind of had a deer in the headlights sort of look on her face. And she gave these long, meandering answers that never really answered the question. And I thought, how is it that you can't have a stock answer ready to go on those two hot button subjects, especially when you know you're going to be asked about it? You know your opponent is pressing on those issues. You know they're issues that people care about in that state. One of them may even cost that candidate the election for attorney general. How is it that you look like you're being asked about it, you haven't even thought about it, and you're answering for the first time cold?
Yeah, I thought the same thing when I was watching the Fox interview that Zoran did, and he gets asked, do you think Hamas should be disarmed? And he would not answer it. I think it's the easiest thing in the world to say yes. Ideally, the terrorist group would not control Gaza and would not have access to weapons, particularly if you are someone, as Zoran is, who thinks that all people should be disarmed. Just all people except Hamas. This makes no sense. The easiest thing in the world to say, without getting into the wider politics of the region or what your views are on the conflict, you could just say, well, yeah, Hamas is bad. It couldn't even clear that bridge. So yes, I don't. Well, I mean, the Democrats avoid saying, taking unpopular for them, popular for the American people. Obviously, it's a trans, whether trans individuals are competing against biological women in sports is like a 70-30 or 80-20 or more issue. But they know if they say that, they're going to get, well, it would help them win more elections, but they're going to get so beaten up by the cultural left on social media, by their own staffers. Their staffers are woke young people. They get screamed at by all those people, and it's a headache for them. So they try to avoid offending them while also not saying what those people believe, because that's off-putting to the electorate, which is why so many Democrats, Kamala Harris, Cory Booker, so many of them just avoid saying anything real and then have an authenticity problem where then they're just boring to listen to, because they know what the left believes is, particularly on cultural issues, is unpopular, and they don't want to, commit to it because they'll lose elections that way. But they also feel like they need those people on their side and can't offend them. So then they just say nothing and they're unsuccessful. That's the trap that way, way, way too many Democrats fall into these days.
What do you think is going to happen in New York City? Let's assume for one moment that we're right and Mamdani wins the election. He is campaigned as a self-described socialist, and not a socialist in the sense that the word gets thrown around for someone who's more of a liberal Democrat or a left-wing Democrat than just a standard partisan Democrat. But he's a socialist in the sense that he believes the government should own the means of production. He said that himself in any number of interviews. If he tries to go in and just say, okay, this grocery store belongs to Whole Foods today, but tomorrow it's going to belong to the city, so get your stuff and get out because we're taking over. And, oh, you're a landlord. Guess what? There's an eviction moratorium. You can't kick anyone out. It doesn't matter if they pay the rent or not. In a real practical sense, what do you think is going to happen? Do you think the courts are going to allow that? Do you think the state, the federal government will allow that to happen if he actually tries to go through with this?
Yeah, I mean, the good news is that he's going to face a level of non-cooperation from a lot of relevant bodies. It will be difficult for him to implement some of his more radical ideas. That is all to the good. However, his harsh demonization of wealthy people, of non-criminals, is going to cause people to flee the city for good reason. He wants to confiscate with a 2% tax increase. It brings it to 52%. He wants the government to confiscate the majority of people's income, and not even at just some kind of extreme high level. Although of course I wouldn't do that either. But for people who make like $1 million a year, which is not astronomical levels of wealth for New York City. It's expensive to live there. People make a lot of money. They make high salaries, but it's extremely expensive to live there. Those are his plans, and people might say, well, can I be in a virtual employee and live in Austin, Texas, or live in Jacksonville, Florida, or live wherever, or live in the vast interior of the country where you can buy a 10-bedroom mansion for peanuts. It is possible. There's a lot of very nice. I'm from the Midwest. There are nice communities there, and especially if you can work remotely, because job opportunities are better on the coast. But we're more virtual than we used to be. It's doable. He's going to hollow out the city if he does that. He's going to certainly hollow out the city if he has the crime policies that he advocated, not now, but in 2020, when he said we should defund the police, when there should be no policing. He doesn't say that anymore, but he believed it as recently as 5 years ago. Does he believe it now and he's just not saying it? I would like to know that.
Well, he also said that he wants to tax people different rates based on their race, where he wants whites to pay more than other races. Right. I can't imagine the courts allowing that to happen.
Right, and he disguised that. He said in the promotional materials, if I remember correctly, the goal is to make whites pay more. So what we would do is some convoluted scheme whereby people who live in this area that is disproportionately white will pay more than people who live in this area, which again goes to show what the kind of socialist identity, especially for a kind of new or younger socialism instead of a Bernie style socialism that isn't so much about ethnic identitarianism, but the new socialism very much is, because identitarianism of race and gender and all those things is much more exciting to far left young people than the old school, it's all about class war kind of thing. That's out of fashion. So you got to make it about, you got to socialism, but make it intersectional. Brought to you by Zoran Mamdani.
Well, how much of a problem do you think this is going to be in the long term? And by long term, I mean as we get closer to the midterm elections. For people like Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries, Democrats in leadership in the House, where they not only have to win in their own home states and their own home districts, but they're out there representing Democrats all over the country, where I would imagine if you're a Democrat running for office in Utah or Montana or some other state, Texas, and you have an association with Mamdani, that's got to be like having a scarlet letter, and you don't want that to be the Democratic brand. But the left wing of the Democratic Party is demanding that all of these people endorse Mamdani because they believe the same things that he does.
I mean, the problem is they have issues going both ways because the Schumer, Jeffries, just the Democratic brand is so unpopular, is so toxic, is cringe, it is loathed. So it's not like they have this great brand and, oh no, association with the left is going to ruin all the good things they have going for them. They have a terrible brand. And frankly, the left people are saying, like, you've not associated with us enough and you have nothing. When is it our turn to run our candidate? We've run your candidate over and over again, and look where it's gotten us. It's our turn. You should listen to us. At least you'll make us happy. You can't make anyone happy, so you might as well try to make us happy. I think it's not an insane messaging. It will cause general election problems, certainly, but you have to give your party what it wants, and what the Democratic Party wants is action. What the base wants is action and energy, and give us something. Don't give us Chuck Schumer's and Hakeem Jeffries just leaderless nothing. So I think that's the bigger problem, is just that they don't represent anything, and so they're vulnerable to being captured by a Zoran type deal, even if it's obvious that would not be a sure election winner outside of New York City.
And they have another candidate who's causing them problems in Maine, who is the candidate that many on the left want to unseat Susan Collins. His name is Graham Planter, and it was reported today in CNN that he said in 2021 that all cops are bastards. He is a self-described communist and said that white rural America is racist and stupid.
Yeah, this is what they got going for them. But again, the other potential Democratic candidate is, I think she's a 77-year-old woman. And how exciting is that? There's something to be said, frankly, for authenticity, even if your views are authentically bad. Look, I wouldn't vote for either of these people. It doesn't matter. But you got to create movement here. You got to create some energy. So what you just described, I think, are not really winning ideas at all, obviously. But he like Zoran a little bit. Gives a good speech, and he's got some energy to him, and I wouldn't count him out. Now he's running against Susan Collins is a force. She's the last standing kind of Republican who's operating in a blue state, and she very easily shrugged off challenge from the Dems last time. I think it'll be closer this time, but I think she's still a favorite to win that race up against either of them. So maybe they're thinking, why not take a chance and at least feel like we tried instead of not trying very hard and just failing? I don't know. It's a tough choices for Democrats.
Robby Soave, senior editor at Reason and host of Rising on the Hill TV. You can read him online at reason.com and follow him on X at Robby Soave. Robby Soave, thanks so much for stopping by.
Thank you.
800-222-5222 is telephone number, 1-800-222-5222. Did you say you wanted to do an email?
I did not.
Okay. I'm looking at an old message.
Someone emailed asking if I could send them the Katie Porter Chubby Chaser list tape, and I did that.
Well, if you want to email us too, you can at johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. That's johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. And if you want to go back to the show where you played that interview last week, Randy, that's easy to do.
All you got to do is search for The John Phillips Show wherever you get your podcasts, whether it's the Apple Podcasts app, iHeart, Spotify. Search for The John Phillips Show, hit subscribe, and download all the episodes.
Little D.
800-222-5222 is the telephone number, 1-800-222-5222. Well, one of the things that happened when I was on vacation is the police chief in Oakland started packing his bags. And now the city of Oakland is going to need a new police chief.
It's happened yet again.
Feel like this is something that happens quite a lot. In fact, Johnny, before we get into why Floyd Mitchell is leaving OPD, let's just go through a quick little history lesson courtesy of KTVU.
But Gaussian, you mentioned the revolving door. I have a few notes here going back to 2013 on the number of different police chiefs, acting and interim, that have been active here in Oakland. Chief Howard Jordan, he resigned in 2013. Following him was Chief Anthony Toribio, who served just 2 days on the job. Then we had Chief Sean Wentz, who took over for about 3 years. Mm-hmm. That's the longest stint, if I'm doing my calculations correctly, the longest stint that someone has held the job in the last 12 years. Sean Wentz eventually had to resign back in the 2016. Chief Ben Farrow eventually took over the job. 5 days later, he was off the job. Chief Paul Figueroa was then put in that position. He was then replaced a few days later by a city administrator who acted as the interim. That was Sabrina Landreth. And then 2017, we had Chief Anna Kirkpatrick, who was eventually fired from her job just about a year later, 2 years later. When she was fired, Darren Allison came up and acted as the interim chief. Then we had LaRon Armstrong, which seemed to be someone who was going to stand here for quite a while. He was eventually fired by Mayor Sheng Tao. That ultimately led to her recall. When he was fired, Darren Allison stepped up again to be the interim. And then it was just about 18 months ago that we had hired Floyd Mitchell from Lubbock, Texas, to serve on the job again.
That is a lot of chiefs.
Who's in charge of that city? George Steinbrenner?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Sheng, you got a shout out. All right, let's hear what's going on. The guy that Sheng Tao hired to lead OPD, leaving after just a year and a half on the job. Here is KPIX in the Bay.
We begin in Oakland with a stunning resignation of the police chief. It comes as the mayor is touting significant progress in reducing crime. And today, the city announced that Chief Floyd Mitchell will leave the department in early December. Continues a decade of instability at that position. Amanda Harry on how this latest setback could impact the community.
We're hearing from a lot of people about Oakland Police Chief Floyd Mitchell. And while many people had positive things to say about him, none were surprised that he's stepping down.
Which means he told everyone he knew that he was working for crazy people.
And some are hoping it will force the city to take a closer look at why.
He's willing to put up with the humidity in Lubbock again to get out of Oakland.
I want to thank you for
Go Texas Tech.
I want to thank you for welcoming me into your city. I can't wait to make Oakland my home.
By the way, you know what was one of the funnier aspects of Floyd Mitchell getting this job from Sheng Tao was the fact that he wasn't actually qualified to be a California police officer and had to go through training for 3 months.
Oh, that's right. That's what led to the delay.
And get to work as your police chief. Thank you.
Less than a year and a half after being sworn in as Oakland Police Chief, Floyd Mitchell is stepping down.
Again and again, we continue to recruit talented people in this city, and we can't seem to retain them.
Oakland Police Officers Association President Wee Win has been a part of the department for more than 2 decades. He knows the important work they do, but says it's challenging when they have a revolving door of leaders.
26 years, 15 police chiefs have taken the helm, and it's very difficult that sometimes we need to evaluate, is it us or is it them?
And he's calling on this.
All right, what have there been more of in the past 20 years, John? Police chiefs in Oakland or program directors at KABC?
Well, if you went way back into the vault, I think there are more police chiefs in Oakland than husbands of Elizabeth Taylor.
And he's calling on the city to take a closer look at what's happening from the top down to the bottom, because he says they're losing people every day.
Every single rank in this organization continue to leave every month at a very troubling number.
Yeah, the attrition is continuing. There are so many people that are technically with the department, but they're on some kind of leave. So you've got around 500 officers, and that number is dwindling every single month to patrol that city. It's not working out.
Well, I would imagine that if you hate your job, and if you are a police officer in Oakland, one of the reasons that you hate your job is that the city council and the mayor, they're insane, and they fundamentally don't want you to do the job that you were hired to do. You find ways to get out of it, whether that be to call in sick or to find a way to go out on medical leave. You do what you have to do to keep your sanity.
Not only just police officers, but you have supervisor, commanders, and now chief of police. And I think that I challenged the mayor and the council to create a plan to retain the talent.
Well, last time it took a year and a half just to hire a new guy. How long is it going to take this time?
Probably the same.
While the reason Mitchell resigned is unclear, Wynn believes it's the challenging working conditions. But civil rights attorney John Burris has a different take. He thinks it has to do with the leadership at the top.
One can understand and appreciate that he was appointed by the previous mayor and that a new mayor would want their own police chief.
Well, wait, that's the thing that Shang did that got her in trouble in the first place.
And if you're thinking about ideology, there's no difference between Shang and Barbara Lee. The only difference between the two of them is age and race and life experience. But politically speaking, they're the same person.
Mitchell came to Oakland from Lubbock, Texas. Burris feels he may not have been prepared for the differences between the cities.
You got to deal with the monitor.
You tell me that there's something a little different between running a police department in a major city in California and Lubbock?
Apparently there are.
You got to deal with the monitor. You got to deal with the courts. You got to deal with the police commission.
Oh, there's also all that. See, he may have came from a police department where the police officers are allowed to do their job. In Oakland, the police officers are not allowed to do their job because of the appointed members of the police commission.
And he ran for the hills.
Aside from,
it's funny because he just got a victory with them where he finally got them to approve changing the pursuit policy, but then said that was a pain in the ass. I'm not doing this anymore.
Well, if every time you try to reform something, it's a knife fight, at a certain point, you just wave the white flag.
Aside from the mayor and the city manager and the community itself. So there are a lot of different dimensions to the job I thought that he was not necessarily ready for when he took the job.
The Oakland Police Department has been under federal monitoring since 2003, primarily due to unresolved issues with quality of policing and consistency of internal affairs investigations.
Although, if you remember, one of the reasons that we found out that Shang Tao fired LaRon Armstrong, the former police chief, was because he was blowing the whistle on how that federal monitor was keeping Oakland PD in a receivership because he was making a 7-figure salary.
Burris believes they can soon exit monitorship, but the department needs to stay on the path it's on.
We made a lot of reforms.
By the way, this is a recurring trend. Oakland Unified was in receivership, just got out of receivership, is now about to go back into receivership.
More money to be made.
We made a lot of reforms here, and it's taken a long time to get them implemented. We don't want someone to come in with a brand new idea about things and tear it all down. So whoever comes in has to appreciate that a lot of work has been done, and we want to build on that work.
But Wynn has a different take and is looking for more change.
That there's a different directions that the city can be led to making a better working environment for our workforce.
I asked a few people when Mitchell handed in his resignation. They said they couldn't tell me if it was this morning or days ago.
That's not good.
Nobody knows anything.
That was Amanda Harry reporting, and the chief resigning comes at a time when Oakland's reporting a significant drop in crime.
No one's buying that.
No, they stopped reporting. And so on paper, it looks like crime is going down. But every night, what do you lead your newscast with, buddy?
According to the latest crime data, overall crime is down by nearly 30% compared to this time last year. Violent crime is down 25%. And in a statement, Mayor Lee said, quote, "I am grateful for Chief Mitchell's collaboration with our administration and his focus on community-centered policing. The women and men of the Oakland Police Department have my full support as we work together to ensure a smooth transition and continue building on the progress we have made for Oakland's residents."
It's going to be a mess just like last time. And the time before that, and the time before that, and the time before that.
And the time before that. Does anyone really think that anything's going to improve? That silence is your answer. 800-222-5222 is the telephone number. 1-800-222-5222. Let's go to Eduardo in Oakland. Eduardo, hello.
Hi, John. The reason I'm calling is in the second hour of your program, you have this gentleman that was going back and forward and talking about we live in a dictatorship, and then the Trump this and Trump that, and the dictator.
Oh, yeah,
I'm
Shakespeare.
originally from Venezuela. Yeah, exactly. I'm originally from Venezuela. And I can tell you what a dictatorship is. Just to mention, when Chavez first got in power, I'm going back in time. I'm talking just about July of 2009. At that time, he closed 34 radio stations. 34. Now, with his successor, with Maduro, I have no idea, but I think they count like around in the 90s. Other than that, he also closed the biggest and oldest and most popular television station. It was a national TV station founded in November of 53. Well, in 2007, because he didn't like that these people were reporting the situation in Venezuela, well, it was shut down until this day. It's called Radio Caracas Televisión, if people would like to go and check in the internet. Not only that, also they confiscate property, farms that were properly working, because the owners or the people who were working on those productive, those medium of production that they were successful, they were not aligned with his politics. So if people want to talk about dictatorship, I found this very common here in the Bay Area. Unfortunately, living in Oakland, I'm in San Francisco. By the way, I come from San Francisco before moving here, and it's ridiculous. I don't know which one of the two have the highest level of inanity, especially you were talking about the police changes here in Oakland. But again, that's another topic. One more, people have to really be grateful for what I have in this country. I wonder what is it that people are trying to cross the border illegally in this country, if this country is so bad, if it's a dictatorship. I would suggest you to either travel more or get more informed. And, don't watch that much TV. If you want to be free, don't watch that much TV. I think the gentleman that called you, I don't think he did any research through an academic sense in an intellectual manner. I think he was probably bombarded with many, many, many years of people who opinionating in the area. I take my 2 cents on this. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous.
Well, thank you so much for the call, and thank you for your perspective as someone who has lived in a dictatorship, between the differences of a democracy where you have food fights all the time, you have disagreements, you have people going at it with one another. That's what's supposed to happen in a democracy, and what happened in a dictatorship that you lived in Venezuela, where the government doesn't allow radio stations to disagree, or television stations to disagree, or farms or factories to have owners or employees that support other candidates. That's what happens when you have a dictatorship. That's what happened to Venezuela. That's why a country that could be very rich and very successful is struggling. They're struggling because of their government. The minute that government goes, that country has the opportunity to be just as rich as any other country on planet Earth. Thank you for the call. I appreciate that. Let's go to Albert in Lake County. Albert, hello.
Hey, John, you have the patience of the saint. So the caller before you, we're talking about the same caller. He calls up, calls you a liar. Then he's telling about, yes on 50, yes on 50. Then, Trump's a dictator. And I'm listening to this, and I'm going like, the real dictator is Newsom, because in the state of California, we have the independent commission, right? And so he went right, you bypass that, and he goes, oh, no, I'm going to gerrymander all by myself, and you have to do it because I said so.
Well, one of the hallmarks of these countries, of authoritarian countries, is they don't claim that they're authoritarian. They claim that they're a democracy, and it just so happens that Kim Jong-un gets 99% of the vote. And it just so happens that Saddam Hussein gets 99% of the vote. And you listen to what these people are saying, and they're saying, in order to preserve democracy, in order to save democracy, we have to rig the election so that the outcome is predetermined.
Yes, and I've been listening to the Yes on 50 advertisements, and my God, they're full of lies and innuendos, and it's like anybody with a half a brain would listen to that and go, really? That's not what this is about. Anyways, I want to make sure you heard it. You still got the patience of the saint, I got to tell you. I want my 5 minutes back.
If you think I have the patience of a saint, you should see me on the golf course. Let's go to Steve in Burlingame. Steve, hello.
Oh, John, I love your show. You guys are great. I've been following Carl DeMeo down there in L.A. and got on his mailing list and trying to get signs for No One Prop 50 up here. My sign got torn down by the local liberals off my fence, and we just need help up here. And this Yes on 50 thing is just crazy. But you want to know a dictatorship? Gavin Newsom and the Democrats have a dictatorship in this state. How do we break this? How do we get I don't know. Is there something in the water? I'm a native San Franciscan. I'm 73 years old. I've lived in Northern California all my life, and what I see going on here is absolute insanity. You can't even relate to these people because of their Trump derangement syndrome. It's so systemic. I just need help. We need help. Thanks, John.
Well, thank you for the call. I appreciate that. Nothing is going to change in this state until people start voting differently. It's not as if one morning Newsom's just going to wake up and realize that he's been governing us the wrong way and he's going to change what he's doing. From his point of view, everything is working out for him. He was elected mayor. He was elected lieutenant governor. He was elected governor. He survived a recall. He was reelected. And now he's the front runner for president. So from his point of view, what he's doing is working like a Swiss clock because it's working out for him. And if it's working out for him, that's all that matters to him. If the state of California is working, that's not relevant information. It doesn't matter if the bullet train is operational. He says it's a success, and the people seem to believe him, so that's all that matters. Perception is reality. And the perception among Democrats right now is that he is a successful governor who is the chief foe to Donald Trump. And if he can maintain that framing, he will be the Democratic nominee for president, and then he's got a 50-50 shot at winning the election and becoming the next president of the United States. He's not going to change anything that he's doing. And the people underneath him who have been able to get elected feel the same way. Their beef is that they can't move up the food chain because it's clogged up right now because there's so many Democrats who are all fighting for the same jobs. The reality is, if you want a different direction in California, if you want government services to be distributed in a better way, you have to vote for different people because the crowd that's in charge is not going to change what they're doing. And they've demonstrated that over and over and over again.